It was an up and down year for Tigers pitching in 2025. We are going to talk about what the 2026 pitching staff could look like all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Wednesday, October 29th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the app today. Welcome in. Welcome all, everybody. Halfway point of the week here. Today, we are going to continue the conversation we had on yesterday's show in regards to the 2026 Detroit Tigers. Yesterday, we talked about the position players and the offense and who from 2025 will be back in 2026. Today, we do the same thing with the pitching staff. Also, I've finally, as some of you have pointed out, started hanging stuff on the wall. This is not finished product. I have a whole display case that I'm going to hang up right there, but that one's going to that's like a day project. It's a big old thing that, So we'll get there. It's going to be like a fun game. You can just, every time you tune in, be like, oh, how many pictures did he add to the wall today? But got a lot still to add. That's just what I had time for in between work and this recording today. So bear with me as moving, not super enjoyable, but also very enjoyable. Pitching staff in 2025, to actually talk about what we're here to talk about. It was a weird year. And I don't have to tell you all that. I think I want to break this down into, obviously, rotation and bullpen. We'll start with the rotation. The Tigers were 11th in starting pitcher ERA. They were 7th in starting pitcher FanGraphs WAR. The rotation had a top 5 strikeout rate in all of baseball and was in the bottom half in the league in walk rate. Bottom half meaning like lowest, like good. It's a good thing that they're in the bottom half. Fewest bottom half in amount of walks allowed. So there's obviously a lot to like in that conversation. And I think that Skubal certainly does a lot of the heavy lifting, and he helps a lot in this regard when you look at it analytically. Jack Flaherty was also, for all of his struggles he had this year, he was a good strikeout guy. And for, again, to have a top 5 strikeout rate among starting pitchers in the entire sport is something. You know, we talk about the frustrations that people have with the offense. Well, the frustrations people have with the offense is that they strike out a lot. So from the pitching side of things, you want to be doing the striking out, because then the other team obviously doesn't have a chance to put the ball in play and make something happen offensively. So maybe the most Captain Obvious statement I've ever said on here, which is really saying something. But I mean, like Reese Olson, when he's healthy, a good strikeout guy. Casey Mize is not an elite, whiff rate or strikeout pitcher, but I think down the stretch, he certainly improved in that regard and kind of showed that he has the ability to be, a league average strikeout guy over the course of 162. And you even get some production from some other, like Charlie Morton was terrible as a Tiger, unfortunately. Didn't even make it through the end of the year, but got strikeouts. So they got production in that specific area throughout a lot of people. My point is, the reason I'm even bringing this up is not to try to argue that, guys like Charlie Morton, secretly had good years. Okay. That's not even remotely what I'm trying to say. I am saying that they received legitimately some of the best production from starting pitching in the sport, probably a top 10 rotation when it was all said and done. If you remove Tarek from that, then that falls significantly. Now, that's not a very fair game to play. He is on the team, and he was on the team in 2025, so he's obviously included in that. But if you were to trade him, hypothetically, your rotation would get incredibly thin very quickly. Now, obviously, you trade him, you get a young starting pitcher or two in return, then bolsters the depth you have there. But those guys, even if you bring in those caliber, like really good high-end young starting pitching players or prospects, they're not going to be Tarek Skubal in terms of production in 2026. So I am under the assumption he's going to be here. I have maintained that so far throughout the offseason. We'll see what the future holds. If I maybe pivot on that and flip-flop on you, we'll see. But for the time being, I am under the assumption that Tarek Skubal is going to be on the Detroit Tigers in 2026. And if that is the case, then I think you have three solid starting pitchers in place that were on the team in 25 and that will be back in 26. Number one is obviously the aforementioned Tarek Skubal. I don't expect them to extend him. I don't expect them to trade him. I think that they're just going to walk into 2026 and understand that it's the last year that he'll be a Detroit Tiger. And obviously, if he is moved, then that changes a lot. And this whole conversation changes a lot. But again, as I said yesterday, this is what I think is going to happen. So there you go. We can stop repeating myself and move on. Reese Olson, number 2. So we already kind of talked about Reese a little bit last week. We did his player breakdown, his player review, report card, whatever we're calling it. So we don't have to go super in-depth on the analytics and what his season looked like since we already did that. But he was the second best pitcher on the team when he was healthy. The question is, when healthy, right? He has not been healthy for really his entire major league career. And that's not to say that he's been like pitching through injuries necessarily. He has just missed substantial time in literally all of his major league seasons up to this point. So I think you can pencil him in. I had like a 3.15 ERA, 3.2 ERA. Like he had a really good season when he was healthy. I think you can pencil him in as a guy that can be a top half of the rotation arm for this team. It's just a matter of how many innings are you actually going to get out of him. And I mean, I'm sorry, like I love Reese Olson. I hope that he does pitch a full season and makes, 30 plus starts next year. But I need a top of the rotation, top 2 in the rotation guy to get me innings. That matters. So we'll see what happens in that regard. But regardless, he is certainly back in 2026 and in the rotation on opening day, assuming his own health. And then number 3 is obviously Casey Mize. Solid season. I think this is probably near his peak level of production, which is fine. Like he made an all-star game, right? Like it's fine. He's either a really solid, back of the rotation guy, or like a high-end back of the rotation guy, or a fringe, middle of the rotation type of starter. Somewhere between 3 and 5 in my rotation, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The splitter kind of determines it start to start. We've talked about that plenty, but he'll be back in 2026, and I'm very happy about that. He, I think, proved to be a solid major league pitcher over the course of a full season for maybe the first time in his career just because of all the injuries. So that's a good thing. Number 4 in the rotation, I have a free agent. We'll talk about that right after this. First, though, I got to talk to you about our friends over at Prize Picks. This episode brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, we can get well paid for being right with those decisions we make. So don't miss out on any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action than right now. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. And you just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. And if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds. You make your lineup, and you can play anywhere where Prize Picks operates. That includes California, Texas, Georgia, etc. So Prize Picks is Amazing. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow as we continue our off-season conversations as this World Series inches closer and closer to being over at a snail's pace after 18 innings. We might talk about that if we have time at the end of the show. Today, though, we talk about the 2026 Tigers pitching staff, who comes back from the 2025 team, who does not. The number 4 spot in the rotation I have is a free agent. Now, it's not, I guess, literally the number 4 spot. I'll explain that a little bit more later. I think I would prefer if Mize was my 4 starter. In a perfect world, even like 5. That would mean that your rotation is pretty darn good if he's the 5th guy in the rotation. But I do want at least one starting pitcher. You need to give me at least one this year. I go back and forth a lot on whether Flaherty is going to return. I know it seems kind of wild if you just look at the ERA and you look at, the season that he had for a majority of the year. And maybe I'm a complete idiot, okay? That is always on the table in these conversations, okay? Very openly. That is a possibility. But I think that he's going to seek a multi-year deal. And I think that given his age, he's still only about 30 years old, and his strikeout rate this year and over the last 2 years, really, I think he gets it, man. I really do. So I'm kind of leaning toward him opting out. Now, obviously, if he opts in, I'm not going to be stunned or floored. And I am then just an idiot, and that's fine. Certainly not going to be surprised by that. And if he does come back, I'm not going to be mad about it either. It's probably other ways that 20 mil can be spent if he picks up, or if he doesn't pick up the option. However, I think there's a lot worse as well. I really don't have an issue with that. Now, even if he is to opt in, I still want a free agent, legitimate free agent starting pitcher. At worst, a middle of the rotation guy. Number 5, I have Troy Melton / another free agent. Now, that's kind of cheating, but hear me out. Like, I think Melton's going to be the opening day back end of the rotation guy. I think he's going to be the opening day 5 starter out of camp, which is really fun and exciting and awesome. And I love that. I love Troy Melton. I think he's got a really high ceiling and a really bright future. I also think that there's essentially zero chance that he throws over 120 innings next year. So I think that some sort of, whether it's just a patchwork like 4A guy or a veteran, reclamation project, Alex Cobb, but he actually pitches, like that type of signing to at least just guarantee that you have some sort of major league talent at that 5th rotation spot, whether, Melton is healthy and at his innings limit or not. I also don't think that Cater Montero or Sawyer Gibson-Long or Brant Herter, Jose Urquidy, like any of these guys showed enough for me to be confident in them locking up a spot in the rotation next year. Now, that all being said, depth is vital. The Tigers used 15 different starting pitchers this year. 15. So I'm glad that they have guys like Montero and Sawyer Gibson-Long and Herter, and if Urquidy comes back, sure, fine, whatever. Like they need depth. 15 different starting pitchers this year. Job will almost certainly miss all of 2026 as well, so you're not going to get his help. I don't anticipate you're going to get his help at the end of the season. I guess, some people might be holding their breath that he comes back in like August or September. I will not be one of those people until proven otherwise. I'm just going to assume he's not back until 27. So yeah, like you need to go into camp with more than just like 5 starters and just do a traditional like, oh, we have 5 guys, so we'll be good. You are not good. We have not had fewer than like 12 starting pitchers used in half a decade. Now, I'll end the rotation conversation with my kind of Hail Mary plea here. If we're to shift focus a little bit from what I think is going to happen to what I really want to happen, I would absolutely love one of those free agent spots I mentioned to be a top end of the rotation guy. Now, you can pretty much just say that anytime you have a hole in your rotation. You want the best players, obviously. But I think that it is really important for the Tigers to heavily consider actually doing this. Just walk with me here, okay? In 2026, you have Skubal last year. Olson, as I already mentioned, been hurt every year of his career. Mize has not proven that he is like a top 2, rotation guy at the major league level over the course of 162. Maybe there's still room to grow, and I'm underestimating him, and I would love for that to be the case because I love Casey Mize, and I think he's an unbelievable competitor and a great dude. But like so far, I'm going with what we've seen so far in his career. Troy Melton, a rookie, not going to get a ton of innings. Flaherty might not even be back next year. And certainly, even if he is, was not an ace caliber production-wise in 2025. So you could really use another more solidified top-end guy for 2026. On top of that, and maybe even more the case, beyond 2026, your starting rotation is paper thin. It is really bleak, man. I'm not even going to lie to you. And like, there's some guys that have been drafted, out of high school from this organization over the last 2 years that I really like and that I think, just haven't gotten professional innings yet because they're young arms and they've been hurt or whatnot. Like there's a long-term, at least some sort of, silver lining or glimmer of hope here. But in 2027, like Skubal leaves. Okay, so now you don't even have like a bona fide ace immediately. And that's not even mentioning all the other question marks after that and the lack of like legitimate prospects that are kind of waiting in the wing ready in the next 2 years. Job hopefully is back. That'll be his first year back from Tommy John, and he still only has, 70 innings, 80 innings at the major league level in his career. So I would love for them, I think it makes all the sense in the world, for them to go big and sign a top end of the rotation. It doesn't have to be like I need you to trade for like Skeens, or like I need you to trade for like a superstar, bona fide, one of the best pitchers alive. Just get a guy that is a legitimate top half of the rotation type of pitcher to a multi-year deal. We haven't signed anybody to like a legitimate multiple year contract in what feels like ages. A free agent, that is, not like contract extensions. So that is my plea. You give yourself a little bit of stability long-term in the top half of your rotation. You get guaranteed innings. It takes a lot of the pressure off of the young guys at the bottom, and it gives you a little bit of stability no matter what happens with Tarik Skubal going forward. Okay, let's talk bullpen. Bullpen was bottom 6 in reliever production in 2025 and had the single worst strikeout rate in all of baseball among relievers in 2025. That drives me nuts. You watch that World Series game on Tuesday night that goes 18 innings. The Dodgers are pulling people out of the stands that like people have never even heard of. They're throwing like ball boys out on pitcher's mound, and they're throwing 99 to 100 miles an hour. Why is this front office? What is the refusal to get people that throw hard? They just, it drives me nuts. It's one of my biggest critiques with this regime. They don't get people that throw hard in the draft. They don't get people that throw hard in free agency. They just, they're the only team in baseball that doesn't have, like the Rockies have Halverson, who throws like 200 miles an hour. Like every single team, no matter how good or bad they are, has at least one flamethrower that gets a ton of strikeouts. The Tigers just don't. It's infuriating. The worst strikeout rate in baseball. As I mentioned earlier, you're mad at the offense. You're mad at the offense because with runners in scoring position, or just in general, they strike out way too much. I agree with you. That's also why the bullpen sucked. It's the same conversation, just you're talking to the guy on the mound instead of in the batter's box. It's literally copy and paste the same thing. Why does the bullpen suck? Because the ball is always being put in play. So, in terms of the returning players in 2025, I'll tell you what, it's not a long list. Okay. Will Vest can come back. No issue with that. Now, I still don't think that Will Vest should be the best reliever in your bullpen. He had an ERA around 3 this year. That's not a bad season. But again, you look around the league, like there are terrible teams that have, a reliever that has like a 1.70 ERA and throws 102. So he had a solid season. He'll obviously be back next year. I'm not even sure that's really much of a conversation. He was, from start to finish, the best reliever on the team this year. He deserves to come back, and he will be a prominent part of what the Tigers are trying to do as far as their bullpen goes in 2026. Let's talk about everybody else, because I think that's where the conversation gets a little bit more interesting. Okay, we'll do that right after this. First, we're going to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next point to fourth quarter comebacks and everything in between. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It just keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, new customers at FanDuel are getting $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up today and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, on this fine Wednesday. Let's talk about the rest of the 2025 bullpen and who could be back in 2026. I think Tyler Holton's back. I don't think, similar, I don't think Tyler Holton should be the best left-handed pitcher in your bullpen, which not only was he the best left-handed pitcher in your bullpen down the stretch, there was a solid 2 or 3 weeks in September when your team was on a losing streak where he was the only left-handed pitcher, literally, in the bullpen. That is preposterous. Go out and get some lefties. Go out and get some lefties that throw strikeouts and that get swing and miss and record strikeouts, throw strikes, I guess. But he'll return, and I'm fine with that. He had 2 incredible seasons before this year. I'm willing to bring him back as a lefty, especially, and be like, let's just see if we can get back to the Tyler Holton that literally received an MVP vote in 2024. Number 3, Brant Herter. Speaking of lefties, I think that Herter showed enough this year to, he was still kind of sporadic with the command. He was spraying the ball a little bit at times, got demoted at one point. But I think that there is enough promise here as a lefty specialist for me to be more than okay with him coming back next year. He got lefties out at a great clip, and at a bare minimum can give you long relief, multiple innings, and specialize against left-handed hitters. So I think that he's back in some capacity. Number 4 is Jason Foley. Maybe not on opening day, I guess, but he started throwing again in August. His throwing progression started again a couple of months ago, still, when the regular season was still in play. So I think that there's a real chance he's ready by spring. I'm not a doctor. Maybe I'm totally wrong. But I expect him to be out of this bullpen at some point in the first half of the 2026 season. And I absolutely welcome that. I love and adore Jason Foley. And if he can replicate what he was doing in April and May of 2024, then you're talking about a guy that has the potential to legitimately be one of the better relievers in the American League. So we'll see. And even if he doesn't replicate that, he still is a bowling ball sinker and can keep the ball on the ground, doesn't give up extra base hits, is a valuable asset to this team. After that, I'm not sure there's anyone I'm like married to bringing back, to be honest with you. Now, there's a lot of nuance with like bringing back Finnegan, Paul Sewald, Jose Urquidy, Rafael Montero, all guys that the Tigers have the ability to bring back if they so please, or at least negotiate a reunion with if they so please, but are not guaranteed to be under contract next year. The only one, I mean, that I would be, like smiles about if they returned is Finnegan. I guess if they really like what they saw out of Rafael Montero, I wouldn't be like furious at that. Urquidy, it's, your discretion, I guess. And Paul Sewald, again, same thing. I barely saw either of them. Finnegan obviously had a great regular season, struggled a little bit after he came back from injury, and certainly wasn't the same in the postseason, but I think did enough and, reinvented his pitch arsenal to the point where if you were to bring him back on a 1 or 2 year deal, you'd probably feel pretty decent about it. But then there's everybody else, right? Brennan Hanafy, Chase Lee, Dylan Smith, Bo Brisky, who kind of disappeared there for a while, got hurt eventually. Cater Montero, Alex Lang, yet again, that group probably makes up the rest of the options you have if you have other openings. I mean, if Lang can throw strikes, we've been saying that for 4 years though, and he didn't this year in Toledo, he didn't. If Brisky can be healthy and go back to what he was in 2024, that's a big if, but if that happens, then I guess he can compete for a spot. I'd imagine Hanafy is probably in the mix on opening day. And I would probably even say that it's likely he makes the team out of camp. Had a 3 ERA, another sinker, guys really good against righties. But to be honest with you, man, the last 4 spots can all go to free agents for all I care. Or Finnegan and then 3 others. Legitimately, I'd be happy. You need a complete overhaul, man. If this bullpen even looks remotely the same as it did this year going into next year, I'm going to be furious. You need swing and miss. You have none. You are the only team in baseball that just doesn't have a guaranteed swing and miss guy anywhere in their bullpen. You need strikeouts badly, very badly, because you're getting none. Foley doesn't even add that. I mean, again, if he looks like he did in April of 24, then I guess he kind of does when he was throwing 103 mile an hour sinkers. But traditionally, Foley is not a swing and miss guy. Hanafy doesn't do that. That's been a big issue in his career. I would love to be talking to you in February about how literally half of the Tigers bullpen is new faces. Truly. That's how poor of a performance it was throughout the year. Now, what do I think is going to happen? They'll sign 2 guys and call it a day. And they'll just say, you know what? We believe in the coaching staff. We believe in the development and trying to get more out of these guys. Maybe they'll be healthier, whatever. We have a lot of depth. They do have technically depth. They have a lot of bodies there. That's my expectation. What I want is legitimately half, if not more, of the bullpen to be completely overhauled. There's so many relievers available every year. Go get someone that can get swings and misses. Okay. So that's kind of my outlook on the pitching staff. Need a lot of new relievers, need a couple of new starters, and anything that's baseline. Anything less than that, I'm going to be pretty darn disappointed. Let's talk about the World Series tomorrow. Okay. Well, when we have a little bit more time. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow, continuing off-season Tigers talk, talking a little bit about this World Series, which already seems to be a classic as well. I am actually recording this right before first pitch of Game 4. So I'm going to go do that. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope, and I'll catch y'all tomorrow, baby. Go Tigers.